Today I'm going to show you how to make a traditional sourdough loaf of bread. And last night we made the leaven, and then today I'm just going to go over the ingredients one more time and show you the process of making your sourdough bread. The first step in making your sourdough bread is to measure out a tablespoon of starter to make a leaven. And a leaven is what is going to be used in your bread to give it rise and to give it flavor. So we're going to tear out our scale, and then we're going to add 75 grams of flour. You can use all-purpose or bread flour. Here today I'm using bread flour. And then we're going to go 75 grams, which is about 1/3 of a cup of water. Then I'm just going to give it a good stir with my dough whisk. And it's going to make a really thick batter. And then what I'm going to do with this batter is cover it and let it sit for a minimum of 12 hours. Last night I made a leaven, and it's super bubbly, and it's still pretty thick. And the way to test that your leaven is ready to make sourdough is you take a spoonful of it and you drop it in some water. And if it floats, that means it's ready to go. And ours is floating. I don't know if you can see that. Leaven floating at the top there. Into this bowl, I'm going to put 500 grams of water. To the 500 grams of water that we have right here, we're going to stir in the leaven. All right, we need to mix up our leaven into the water. And I'm just going to use my dough whisk to do that. It works really well. A few stringy bits of leaven left in there is going to be okay. Ooh, it's all nice and bubbly now. Okay, I'm going to set this aside just for a second while I sift and weigh the flour. I'm going to add 700 grams of flour. So I'm going to make half of it, 350 of it is going to be whole wheat flour. All right, and then I'm going to do 350 of our white bread flour, to get a total of 700 grams of flour, and that's equal to 5.5 cups. It's best to weigh them if you have a way to measure them until you get used to what your sourdough is going to feel like throughout the process. And then I'm going to add the 700 grams of flour to my water. Then I'm going to give it a good mix. I'm going to start with my dough whisk, and then I'll use my spatula more towards the end. I used to not bake because I was daunted by flour and the mess and the cleanup, but I am so glad that I started doing it for my family. It's really saved us money. We were spending almost $4 a loaf for sourdough bread, and we were buying 3 loaves a week. I've got this really shaggy dough that's coming together, so I'm just going to use my spatula now just to kind of get it all incorporated. We don't want any of the flour remaining. This bread actually doesn't require very much kneading. So once I get my dough to a point where I feel like all my ingredients are incorporated, I'm going to set it aside and just let it rest. Because that's the phase where the flour absorbs all of the water. I'm going to cover it with a wet towel and just set it aside to rest for 30 minutes. You can leave that for up to 4 hours. Here I have a 1/4 cup of water. Into that I'm going to start dissolving 1 tablespoon of pink sea salt. We're going to allow our pink sea salt and our water to dissolve. I'm going to add this to the dough, and we're going to squish it all up. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to squish it so much. Before I added the salt water, the dough was really kind of dry almost. Kind of dry consistency, but this has made it loose again. All right, you guys, I think that's good. So Mommy's just going to have you all, yep, in just a second. After we squished it, I got distracted and walked away for about 20 minutes or so. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start my folding process. We're going to fold our dough 6 times over the next 2.5 hours. So every 30 minutes, you're going to come and you're going to give your dough 4 pulls and folds. Start up at the top part of your dough, and you're just going to pull it up. Your green waffles. And fold it over. Then on this side, we're going to pull it up and fold it over. And I always tend to go counterclockwise, and you go whichever way that you're comfortable going. Just be consistent. Pull it up, fold it over, and then one more time on this last side. I'm going to pull it up as much as I can and fold it over. Now this is going to rest for 30 minutes. Time for another flip and fold. So I'm going to turn my bowl, pull up my dough, fold it over, fold it over, more time. And this is going to be my 6th time doing this. I didn't video all of them. I'm going to let this rest for about 30 minutes to an hour, undisturbed. So our bread dough has been resting for quite a few hours now. I should have been preparing my linens for the baskets. Let's just sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of this cloth, and that's going to prevent the dough from sticking to the cloth. So you want to make a thin layer of flour on your fabric and then transfer it to your basket. Here are my bread dough proofing baskets all set and ready, and I just have this fabric laid over a wicker basket. Okay, the next thing we want to do is lightly flour the surface that we're going to be working on. And then I'm going to turn out my dough. And this is what my dough looks like now after it's been setting. It actually has quite a few bubbles in it, and it's still relatively soft. Flour my baking lathe, and then just cut my dough in half. I'm just going to shape it up by twisting it around a little bit. This is just the preliminary shaping of our dough. So don't worry if they're not perfectly round right now. We just have them out here and they're just going to sit and rest for a little bit. Our dough has been resting. Hi! So I'm just going to take the baking lathe and coat it in flour. Make sure my dough doesn't stick. And I'm just, as gently as I possibly can, I'm going to flip it over. The top side I lightly floured, so I'm just going to grab it and flip it over gently. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier with the folds. And this is going to be the last fold that we do, and this is the shaping of our loaf that we're doing right now. So I'm just going to grab it and pull it over, give it a little twist, grab it, fold it over, give it a little twist, grab this part, fold it over, one last twist without deflating the dough as much as possible. Grab this one little bit, stretch it out, flip it over, pinch it to the side. Once we have it rolled like that, we're just going to plop the floured side down into our basket. There we go. These loaves need to rest in these baskets anywhere from 4 hours to overnight. And I find that when you put them in the refrigerator and you let the dough rest overnight, you put it directly into your hot Dutch oven that's preheated at 500 degrees. And when you do that, your dough fresh out of the fridge is just going to poof up and make a really nice, beautiful, tall loaf. So I'm just going to cover these with some towels over top. And then I'm going to put them in the refrigerator overnight. So I have my loaves that have been sitting in the refrigerator overnight. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it into my hot cast iron Dutch oven. I'm just going to take a really sharp knife and I'm going to cut at an angle across my loaf. I'm going to stick a lid on my hot Dutch oven, and it's going in the oven for 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes what I'm going to do is turn the oven down to 450, and then it's going to sit in there for another 10 minutes. I'm not going to take the lid off because right now the lid is creating steam around the loaf. It's creating rise. It's helping create the crust and the rise that's going into our loaf. So after 20 minutes I'm going to turn the heat down to 450, and then I'm going to leave it in there for 10 more minutes. And then I'm going to remove the lid, and I'm going to stick it back in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes to get that nice dark golden brown color of the crust that's going to give it a lot of flavor and a lot of crunchy texture. So our bread has been sitting in a hot Dutch oven for about 30 minutes now, and I'm going to remove the lid. It's all puffed up. It has a nice little sheen on it. And my lame that I sliced it with a knife worked a little bit better this time. You're going to set this in here for another 15 and 20 minutes to give it that, another 15 to 20 minutes to give it that nice dark brown color. We're going to keep it set at 450. Okay, so I've removed my Dutch oven from the stove. It was in there with the lid off for about the last 20 minutes or so. And this is my sourdough loaf. Ooh, it's hot. Whew. So this is my baby, my sourdough loaf baby. Look how beautiful that is. Beautiful color, beautiful shape. Here is one of our loaves cooling right now. I only have one Dutch oven, so I can only cook one sourdough loaf at a time. I did not slice this with a sharp knife, and you see what happened. It just kind of exploded in the middle. For more kitchen madness from the Holistic Homemaker, subscribe to me on YouTube.